What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be working on the Kojima Frequency Podcast. I sit down every week after we record and edit the episode together, and that's a whole process that I make probably a bit more complicated for myself. Some podcasts just record the Discord call and send it on out. Today, I kind of wanted to talk about my process. I've gotten some comments about, the audio quality and just the podcast sounding good and how we actually get it there. And today, I'm not going to do the full editing session on here because that's normally between like 5 and 7 hours, depending on how long the episode is, of me just sitting down and really going to work, splicing up sentences, fixing, stutters and taking out ums and uhs and just trying to make it, as palatable as possible. But I kind of wanted to go over what I do basically, just so if you're in this boat and want to record and edit your own podcast, you can. You probably have the software to do it. I use Reason. That's my music production software. It's a little different than what most people probably use when editing a podcast. They might use something different. I don't know. But any audio editing software where you can, take something, pick it up and move it around and slide and cut, that's kind of the main feature that you're going to want. The rest of the plugins, the EQs, the compressors, there's free versions of those out there that can get you results. The stuff that I use FabFilter for a lot of my stuff. I use their EQ, their compressor, their limiter, their gate. The whole suite is good stuff. So I'm going to dive into it a little bit and just kind of talk about what I'm doing with each thing and why I'm doing it. So here we have the full unedited podcast, and it's kind of long. It's a little long. We ran a little long on this one, but it's fine. It's fine. It's just more work for me. It's okay. So I'm looking at the scrub bar right now. It's an hour and 49 minutes. So we'll see what the podcast is at the end of that. Once I do my cuts. Normally I don't take out too much, subject matter or conversations. It's mainly just like cleaning it up a little bit and just, making it tighter. That's kind of what I do. I don't really try to take out what, people are saying unless it's, gonna get us canceled. So let's see. What I have here is our 4 tracks. I've got my voice, got Nitroid. We got our guest this week, which was DRK. He was great. And then we have Days Ahead. So what I do first is I place the files in here and get them lined up and synced. Now, the way I do that is when we're recording, let me take a step back. We record over Discord. We have the conversation over Discord. And in my experience, the lag hasn't been too much of an issue. Sometimes if you're talking overseas, there might be that few millisecond delay. Sometimes it's like a half a second feel because I've heard my voice come out of other people's speakers and there's that kind of delay. But usually it's not that big of a deal. A couple things when you start recording. First, make sure everyone is wearing headphones or that their speakers aren't loud enough to be picked up on the microphone. If you're talking to someone and doing an interview back and forth and they have their speakers loud and your voice is coming through their speakers, guess what? Your mic is picking up the sound that's coming out of the speakers. So then you've got like double talk going on. And we actually had that happen on one episode where the guy's microphone picked up our entire conversation of what we were saying. And I had to painfully go through and just like mute his channel whenever he stopped talking. But some of us still got in there, but I did the best I could. It's fine. So let's see. So when we record, we have Audacity or whatever audio recording program you want to run. So you've got Discord open and you're recording the phone call, and then you have Audacity open, which I'll open right here just to show you. This is a free download, and it's one of the most straightforward recording softwares I could tell you to use. It's not super fancy. You can do plenty of stuff in it. I don't hate on Audacity. I use WavePad a lot of the times. That's another good one that's, got a free version out there. But, you basically just record however you want to record. And, you just talking to your mic and you pick it up. And then you save it. And normally you want to save it as a wave. You get like your lossless type data at that. If you go into MP3, it'll be fine. But if you do MP3, definitely do 320. Don't dip down in quality. Don't short yourself from the beginning, because this audio file will probably be converted a few times by the time it's done. So you want to start at that top quality to begin with, then it'll get compressed and digitized a bunch more from there on. So now once you've recorded your voices, you have them all, then you tell them, hey, send them to me. And that's what I do. I say, hey, send them to me. And if I don't have them in the morning, I'm going to be sad. Then I'm going to get mad. So get your files, and then you want to lay them all out. Now, you're going to have a bunch of files that aren't synced up probably. There's a couple ways around this. One, the way that we used to do, but I didn't find it too effective over Discord just because some people don't have a rhythm, is the clap. The clap. We've talked about it on the podcast. But that's basically when you do a countdown. And this is a good way to do it. It's like a good way to get like approximate. But you'll do a countdown. We'll go 3, 2, 1, and then everybody claps. Hopefully, if everyone lands on that count, you get a nice synchronized clap. What you get a lot of the times is, and it sounds like shit, and you don't know who was clapping where, and so that gets a little confusing. What I do, and this is just something that I've done in the past, is record a video while I'm doing the podcast. You could even do this with your phone. Just get some kind of sample of how the podcast sounded and the flow that you guys were in, your conversational rhythm, the cadence of it, and just get a small sample of that. And then from there, once you lock it in and line it up, it shouldn't drift. As long as you guys are all recording at the same sample rate, it should be fine. So let's see. I don't know if I want to open this up or not. But this is from, this is last night's recording session, and it was just, chilling on video. Let's see if this open.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Great. Just had a lot of fun stream. I finally got some time for myself to rest a bit and eat, which is always difficult, with these streams.
But, all right, so you can already hear there's the Discord noise, there's the transmission sounds, there's just all these noisy artifacts and stuff. You don't want that. A lot of people settle for it, and they go, that's fine. But for me, I can't stand listening to that like shit that Discord does to people's voices. I hate it. I hate when people drop off and you can't hear the beginning of their sentence. It sucks. So for me, I tell people, record natively. That way you've got your track and you have your audio by itself. Now, let's look at some of these audio files by themselves. I've got mine right here. Let's see how this one sounds. I'm going to solo the track and listen. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. And now see, my mic is a SM7B. It doesn't have too much background noise, and the noise floor is pretty good. So I don't have to do too much to my recording before throwing it in. Now, when you're dealing with other people, you're going to be dealing with other mics and other rooms and other sounds. And that's another challenging part of this, is that everybody's setup is different right now. We're not all in one room recording. It's pretty much just, whatever. You got to just figure it out. So let's listen to Nitroid's track here. Make sure there's no bleed through. I'm going to mute my track, actually.
Recording now. Yeah, we had a...
And see, you can hear there's a little bit of background noise, and you can see it on his meter, too. If you look up here, he's not saying anything, but we're getting that signal right there. So I'm going to do something special to Nitroid's track before I even bring it in. I'm going to do a noise removal, and for that I use WavePad. It's just great. I also put a gate on later just to take out any extra things that it didn't get, but I found this to be a pretty good blanket thing to do for just general background noise removal. Like I said, the program I use is WavePad. So what we're going to do, here's our whole file here. We're going to go in and we're going to find a period of silence. So we're going to select it. Great. Actually, let's get one with a little bump in it. Ooh, man, we're getting all kinds of stuff in here. All right, so I think WavePad has a maximum selection length of 8 seconds when it comes to this. because it has to sample it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our menu, effects. We're going to go to noise reduction. We're going to grab noise sample from selected area. Okay? So what that's doing is going, hey, anything that sounds like this, we're going to sample it. We're going to hit Control A to select all. And then we're going to go to effects. We're going to noise reduction, and we're going to apply spectral subtraction based on that noise sample that we just got. So basically, we took this little sample of this little area, and we're going, anything that's in this recording that's just that, take it out. So now we got to wait. Take a little vape break. While that's going, we're going to pop back in and check these other files real quick. Let's listen to DRK's line and see how that sounds.
Oh. No, you guys are coming through my headphones. Should be fine.
Sounded pretty good. Got a little bit of background noise, as we can see. Just looking on his meter. Got that, tiny 4 little green little dots. But that's okay. That's not anything that's like... Because you're going to hear the before and after on this and be like, oh, okay, cool. And let's look at Daze's line here. Oh, yeah, we got some computer fan noises going on. And so we're going to do a cleanup on all three of these. That's what's going to have to happen, which is fine. That's kind of what I normally do. And we're going to be looking at, certain things that we're going to be looking for that we want to take out. We want to take out coughing. We want to take out just different background noises where people are, accidentally hitting their mic or something. I think actually right at the beginning of this podcast, Daze smacked her mic stand, or she said it was her charger. But let's see.
Oh, have you ever seen that?
But yeah, you definitely don't want these noises in the recording. Like, they're funny to listen to out of context, but like if you're just listening to a podcast and all of a sudden it's like boom, ding, ding, dong, 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 that's a lot. So like, we've got something like this happening. Oh no, Daze.
It's okay, I've got to fix my mic too. Yeah, we got to turn it there.
It sounded like a spring just broke.
Oh, no.
It's like,
No, that was my charger.
Okay.
We got a gong for the podcast. New topic.
That's going to be our peace gong after we piss everybody off with our opinions this episode.
All right, so yeah, you can hear how that was all a really noisy segment. And if I was listening to that with headphones, that would drive me nuts. The sound of the paper crackling, Days don't eat during the podcast. All that stuff, it's fine. It can all be edited out, but it doesn't make for a better listening experience. You don't want to hear eating or chewing sounds. All that stuff drives people crazy. As an audio person, it definitely drives me up the wall. So let's check on let's see how this is done. Here's one we prepared earlier. All right, this is Nitroid's cleaned up version. And if we just listen to some of the silence now, that's bare, like nothing is registering down here, so like we got a pretty flat line. We got a couple little things here that are gonna, yeah, that's nothing. And my gate will catch anything that didn't get past this. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna save this file, and we'll call it Nitroid 2, save it as wave. Fun stuff editing, right? Real fun stuff. But no, it matters, and you need to do it. You should. All right, so once this file of Nitroids ends up saved, we'll it's processing. That's an hour and a half long wait. That's going to take a little bit. All right, so that's Nitroids. Let's go ahead and do this to DRK's line 2, and then we'll pop Nitroids in. Let's see. See, that noise might be a little too much to sample. Like, that might start messing with some of his S's and stuff. So we're just going to take right here. Yeah, perfect. Go to edit, or go to effects, noise reduction, grab, Control A. And then apply. Alright, so now that we've got, we have Nitroid's second file now. And the part that kind of sucks is we already have them synced up, but that's not a big deal because we have markers. So we can see our position here is the first measure on the fourth beat, on the second count, 0.230. Alright, what we can do is just copy that. Boop. Control C to copy. And now we're going to drag our Nitroid 2 file that's cleaned up and add it back in. Waiting for audio analysis to complete. Drawing a waveform, that's what that means. Oh yeah, and we're saving on WavePad too, so my computer's doing double duty right now. But yeah, this is going to be a lot more, cleaned up on the background noise as far as that goes. And then after this, I'm going to get into effect chains and stuff like that. All right, so here we have our 14230. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this and actually bump this one back up here. And then click our position and hit it right back where it was. Now we can delete this lane, go back and change our color again. All right. And then, color doesn't matter, just visual, whatever. So now we have Nitroid in here. He's sounding a lot better. Let me just solo his track.
Yeah, we had an issue.
Do you see anything on that meter? Just on those couple little things. But on the general silence, we have nothing.
Cool.
Cool indeed. So that's where we want it, for the most part on the silence. We don't want like 2 or 3, green lines showing up here. We don't want that. So now we have WavePad. Let's see. We got our DRK file. Is that better? Oh yeah, great. So we're going to save this one. It's DRK2. Shout out to DRK for coming on the show. That was a fun show. Definitely check him out at Outer Heaven Network. Alright, we saved that. Oh, and then we got to process the save. Shit. Hopefully you have a fast computer. That helps. Alright, so we have DRK. Now we just have to go in and get days. And sample 8 seconds here. A little bit over 8. Actually, I want a better 8 seconds than that. That's actually really small. Alright, cool. We're done with some of the tedious stuff. Control A, noise reduction, apply. Alright, so now we have our new Nitroid in here. We need to replace our DRK one now. And so DRK is at 51419. You can just drag it on the same lane. You don't have to add a new track and do what I did earlier. You can just delete the original. Waiting for audio analysis to complete. Sorry, this part, you just gotta watch the loading bars. I don't want to start talking ahead and then get ahead of stuff and be like, let me show you. Wait, I can't. But we're getting there. We're almost there. We got our sync. And we have our noise reduced. Let's see how this is going. It's about halfway. All right. So now we got DRK. Let's listen, make sure that sounds good alongside Nitroid.
Yep.
All right, cool. Pretty much got silence going on there. All right, come on, Days. Putting the blame on Days herself for this file taking a little bit longer. I love you, Days. I'm just kidding. Let's see. Quick little vape. Make sure to stretch. Get up, move around. That's important when these editing sessions end up with a hunchback. All right. We're getting there. All right, so this one is 144359. Copy that. Go ahead and delete. All right, we should be... Oh yeah, much better. All right, save that as days 2. Save it as wave. Almost there. Might time lapse some of this, or I might not and just increase watch time. Who knows? All right. So, all right, cool. We can get out of here now. And then here, this is the whole video track that got, referenced. And this is where I can, just tell my references of where we're at.
Yeah, and then we, everybody records on Audacity.
I'm recording.
Cool.
Daisy recording?
Yes, I'm recording.
Cool.
Sweet. So I can hear that rhythm and kind of be like, all right, I've got that reference to go back and place my things. And that's what I did a little bit earlier, because that's something I definitely didn't want to do on this recording, because that part gets a little tedious when you're just trying to get those rhythms perfect. Gonna bring in Daze's second line here. And then we get to go to effects, and then we'll start cutting away at it. And that's probably where, once I start the cutting, I'll probably end the video there. Because from there, it's just, yeah, now do this for a couple hours. And listen back and make sure everything is fine. And make sure people aren't talking over each other. And make sure things are still lined up. Make sure your levels are all balanced. I've done a little bit of basic leveling here. But that's going to need some adjustments as I go. So go ahead and get this position back right. And now let's listen and hear what we got. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line, and that it's just picking up you. And
yeah, we had
that sounded so much better already, just with that one little step. You could not do anything else from here, but just noise removal. Whew, it's a powerful tool. All right, so now I'm going to get into some of the more advanced stuff. I'm going to apply some effects. Go into our effects here, and I've got Pro G. Pro G is a gate tool. For it, there is a lot of different presets and all that. I usually go to vocal, either go to vocal all around, or sometimes I'll use that smooth vocal MTK, but vocal all around's been pretty good. So we're going to listen just to my track, since that's all that it's on. Happening on your line, and then it's just picking up you. All right, so you can see what's happening here. Basically, there's a threshold, which is my voice. Make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line, and then it's just picking up you. Now, if I raise the threshold, basically, this is like a carnival ride. Like, you have to be at least this tall to be heard. Make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line, and then it's just picking up. So we're going to be applying this for background noise, so we're not going to be this extreme. I just kind of wanted to show you what this thing does. So we're going to go to a silent part, because it's never fully silent, and we're going to dial this back in. And so now anything below this threshold is not going to be picked up, and we're going to actually turn the range up. Yeah. And I'm recording. We got a ratio right at 5. That's fine for what we're doing here. Sweet. But yeah, you can hear already there's no background noise in my line at all, pretty much. Especially when we look at our meter over here, flat. And you can see, there's little bumps and little things that happen, but they get caught by the gate. So, that's all good. All right, so that's just a real quick overview on what a gate is. Next, I'm going to do some compression. I have a preset here for the podcast. And I think it was based off of something in the vocals chain, I believe. I think it was like pro voiceover maybe, or punchy vocals. I don't exactly recall. But I know I have my ratio locked in. I've got this range at about 3. And then the threshold I just dial in depending on how loud we are. And from what I've seen is like find like a good peak and then roll it back about 6 dB from that peak. So I'm going to look through my lines here. I mean, for me, like as a proto, I think why are you making it sexual? Yeah, okay, cool. We get sexual in this episode. I forgot. Not for long. All right, so I saw a peak happen around like 5. So I'm going to subtract 6 from that. So let's see, we're going back. So we'll be right at about 11. Or we're going down. So we're at negative 11 from negative 5. So now we can hear it. As a proto, I think why are you making it sexual? All right. Yeah, so that's just going to catch like a lot of my like big peaks and stuff and kind of make it a little more glued together, not so wow in between the two. And so, yeah, do that on every voice and kind of dial them in. And then now I'm going to go in and EQ. Now, this is something for every voice. It's going to be different. It's going to be completely different how you go about EQing their voice. But one thing I will say, for just about every recording, you want that low roll off, that low cut. And what that does is basically says anything beneath this frequency is not going to come through. Normally for podcasts, I've found around like between 80 and 100 is totally safe, to do a cut. Anything beneath that is basically just you like hitting your desk or hitting your microphone or any of that. You're not going to need anything in the 80 hertz range for a podcast unless it's music. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. And all right, so I'm looking at my voice right there, and here's a nice little graph of how it all came out. I'm going to throw in some bass. I normally throw bass on some people's voices just to give it a little more presence. Make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just... All right, so I'm going to set up a loop here so I don't have to keep clicking play. And we're going to loop, and we're going to listen to this line over and over while I EQ it. Make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to find a muddy frequency. That's normally around like the 300 like boxy area. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through. And the way I kind of hear it normally, like the way I find it with my ears is like it's like a cupping sound. It's like this is only you're really hearing. It's kind of hurt. Like it's that sound. That's what you want out of there. So we're going to tighten up this band a little bit. Once we have it found, happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on. And then we're going to drop it. Boop. So that's what we wanted to take that out. So we wanted to boost the bass. We wanted to take out this boxiness. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on. 500 is the like broadcast frequency, and I normally give a little bump around there just for presence. Your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure around 2000 you can get kind of nasally. You don't really want to boost there too much. Make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, 2 to 3K is just like. Make sure there's no bleed shout out to Kick Tripod for that nya reference. Happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no. See, yeah, you don't really like necessarily want more of that range, so you might want to do a little duck. There's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Another thing you might want to boost is around 5K, 6K is you get your S's and your sibilants. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah. Happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. right, so we're going to A-B that, which means B will be without anything and A will be with the effect. So let's hear the difference. It's going to be kind of subtle, but it will be different. Yeah, just make sure this is with no EQ. Make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your line and that it's just picking up you. Yeah, just make sure there's no bleed through happening on your. Yeah, so you're definitely hearing, it's definitely subtle, but to the trained ear, I think you'll be able to definitely hear a difference. So after that, you got your Pro G, your Pro C, your Pro Q. You start to go through the conversation and just edit and slide things around. Now, for me, that normally just involves listening to the show and going, oh no, there's, a pileup of conversation here. Let me slide these around and move this one here, move it a little later so this person's not cutting this person off. That's the kind of thinking. And for that, you're literally just going to be taking a razor or cut tool and just taking out bits and then deleting them and then, shifting the other thing around. That's like the real tedious part that I'm not really going to sit here and do. But that's pretty much what's behind it. It's just sitting through and listening to how everybody sounds. So if we jump right in.
I got everything.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just.
See, like all of that's gonna get cut. That's gonna all get removed because it was just people just sitting there and Nitro laughing. But it's like that's the stuff. Like, does it improve the podcast? Does it have context of the podcast? No, cut it. There's a lot of that where when people record, there will be that dead air, or the silence or whatever, and it's like, well, that happens on this show, but it doesn't make it in the show because we want it to be tight and concise. But yeah, that's pretty much the general process of what I do for this podcast. And I sit down just about every Saturday and just do this for a while and make it sound as good as possible. But right now I can already tell with just those couple of, things that we threw on, it's already sounding a lot better, and this is going to be a pretty easy edit. Once those are all in there, it's just listening to the show and deciding what makes it and what doesn't. So you can see how there's kind of just, we do pretty good on not talking over each other on the show, and if we do, we apologize and try to get out of each other's way, because we all know, like, that just doesn't sound good when multiple people are talking. And so, we try to have back and forth, but sometimes the interjections can get in the way, and I would rather everybody be heard, and so I'll space those interjections out and make sure they're all there instead of just trying to cram it all into one, like, sentence smorgasbord. So, from there, I'll render the podcast out, and then I'll do some additional EQ, some additional compression, and then I'll throw a limiter on it, which, a limiter, I guess I can show just for the sake of showing it, is basically going to bring everything up to a certain dB without it going past a certain level and peaking and, messing up people's speakers. Why am I having a hard time looking for Pro Out? I use that normally in Ableton when I'm finished up. So I'm not going to do that in Reason here. I might do another video on like the mastering side of it. I feel like this is already running really long for what it is. But yeah, if you want to edit your podcast, record on Discord, get everybody to record. No, let me re-say that. Don't record on Discord. Do your phone call on Discord or Zoom. Get everybody to record natively. Get them to all send you your files. Do noise reduction first, then sync it, then start cutting and doing your EQ and your compression and all that. And then from there, you should have a pretty good sounding podcast. You should. And if you don't, you might have done something wrong. And you might not know what you're doing with compression, or you might not know what you're doing with EQ. But that stuff takes a little bit of time to learn. And it's not rocket science, but it does take some time to just, learn those concepts. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. That's something I truly believe. And like, as long as you're going in the right direction and not learning bad habits and just doing it wrong, Just look at tutorials, read stuff, read articles when they come up on all this, audio mixing stuff, and you should be all right. But I've had a couple people ask me about mixing and editing a podcast. This is kind of it. This is a majority of it. Is, figuring it out this way and sitting down and just taking the time. And I think a lot of the people just don't want to put in the time, and they're a little lazy, and they just don't want to do it. And then there's other people that just don't know how. There's a lot of people that's like, I don't know what I need to do. So, I think just here's a pretty good step-by-step guide of like, get your mics, everybody record, make sure you're synced. I'm not going to go over all that stuff again, but I think this is a pretty good, step-by-step thing to get it done. Hope it helped. I'm going to get to actually editing this podcast now. But just wanted to go over the general ways of how I do it. But thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all. Fingers out.